Hello and welcome to this series of videos where I'm going to show you how to start moving on from the ground stitch and begin to start making the patterns. The first pattern that I'm going to show you is the fan, and I would like to thank Connie for her kind donation which has enabled me to make these videos for you. Thank you, Connie. It really is appreciated, the help that you've given me. So this is the pattern for the fan. This is the finished bookmark. I've made it fairly long, this pricking, because then you get to play with all the different variations on the fans. So the first one that we're going to look at is the cross stitch. Then we're going to do the different edges, the cross stitch and twist edge. And then this one is cross stitch and twist. And then finally we're going to go into half stitch. So I've done this side as a half stitch with a cross stitch and twist edge, and this one's just plain half stitch all the way through. Now the reason they're called fans is because it's actually shaped as a fan, so it looks exactly like a fan would. But basically all it is a trail, because you have a worker that works backwards and forwards following a zigzag line. You also reach points. This point here is what I call the widest point, because from this point here the pins start going back in again, so you can really see that it really is the shape of a fan. Normally you'll find these on the edge of designs, but I have made a design where I popped it in the middle just to be awkward and different. But they really are a decorative edging, and just because you see in a picture of the design you'll work in this fan in one stitch, I'm going to show you at least 4 different ways of working that fan, and each of the ways will work regardless of the size of the fan. But it's just worth knowing that when you come across a design you have options as to which stitches you use. So let's get started. I'm using the pricking on the left hand side from the 3 prickings for fans, and this is what I call a traditional fan. It's the one that's used most generally, and the reason it's called a fan is because, as you can see, it has the shape of a fan. But technically it is still a trail, as you did in the first exercise where you were just taking your worker backwards and forwards, because you're going to have a worker here that runs backwards and forwards following this zigzag line down to the end of this fan. Then we're going to do one on the left and one on the right here. And to do this, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start off with 2 pairs at this point here. So I'm just going to pop a pin in, and I'm going to hang 2 pairs. So at the moment I'm not going to put my worker pair. You will need to have wound 2 pairs, one for each side, which have a bit more thread on it, and you need to put them on this pin here, and you'll see why in a minute when we come to do it. So I'm going to hang 2 pairs. Now if you've got pairs that are the same colour, then you can hang them open like this. This is what I call a rainbow open start, because one pair is around the other. And if you've got 2 of the same colour, when you do your 2 twists to lock your thread together and then close with a cross stitch and twist, your pairs will be back to normal. But as you can see, mine aren't, so I need to counteract that. So let me start again, take those off. So this is my first pair, and I'm going to hang my second pair. I'm still going to hang them open, but I'm going to put one bobbin from one pair in the middle and the other bobbin from the pair on the outside. So it now goes 1, 2. If we say this is pair, the green is pair 1 and the pink is pair 2, it goes 1, 2, 1, 2. So then I'm going to put my 2 twists on, and I'm going to close this with a half stitch, and my pairs are back together again. So let me just show you that again. So I'm going to lay my pairs in, and they're going to be 1 in the middle. Now it doesn't matter whether the other one is that side or that side. So you've got pair 1, pair 2, pair 1, pair 2, and you put 2 twists on and close with a half stitch. Now this is the only point along these starter pins that I'm going to do a half stitch, and the only reason I've done it is to get my pairs back together again in their right colours, because if I didn't, as you saw, I'd split the colours up and that would get confusing. So then I want a support pin. So I can't find my blobby pin at the moment, so I'm just going to use a regular one, my berry pin. And these are your support pins here. And what they do is they will support the threads as we add them into the lace. So I'm going to hang my next pair on. Now I've always done at the start and on the edges, so this is an edge and a start, I've always done a cross stitch and twist because it's the strongest stitch. So I'm going to do a cross stitch, twist both pairs, pin up, and I'm pinning up in the next pin up and just angling it slightly back, and then I'm going to close that with a cross stitch and twist both pairs. Then I'm going to take out my support pin, leave my pin in and guide the thread down. So you can see that what happens if you've done the previous exercise, half stitch your pairs travel, cross stitch your pairs stay where they are. So I'm now going to put in another support pin, another pair, and I'm going to do exactly the same. Cross stitch and twist both pairs and pin up. And you can see I'm just angling my pins just slightly back and off to the edge. And then I'm going to close with a cross stitch and twist, lift up my support pin, keeping it in the thread and pulling it down and put my support pin back in. So I've got 2 more pins to do. We're not going to worry about this fan for the minute. We're just concentrating on adding pairs in for our ground stitch. So I want, let me just check my colours. I'm going to use this blue here. So on a support pin, cross stitch and twist, pin up, angle slightly backwards because by angling it your thread sits on the pricking. If I was to angle it here, the thread can move up, so I angle it just slightly back and then close with a cross stitch and twist both pairs. Take your support pin out and gently ease it down. The reason I use my support pin is because then you've got control over where that thread goes, and when you've got lots of pins in, it can be very easy for it to get caught up. So now this next pin, as you can see, I need a worker for this fan, and because my next pin is on this side, I need the worker to end up over on the outside, and that's going to be the pair that's coming off of this pin here. If you've wound all your pairs the same, you don't need to worry about this, but I have wound one pair which has more on it because the worker in here is going to use a lot more thread than all the passives. So this is my worker, and I'm adding it in on this point here, and as you can see, the pair that I've just added here, the blue, is coming to this pin. So that means that when I work this pin here, this worker will end up going to this pin here. So I'm going to cross stitch and twist both pairs, pin up and close with a cross stitch and twist both pairs. Carefully remove my support pin. I'm going to pop it back because I'm going to add it one more pair on this side, but I'm not doing it at the moment because I'm not ready to work my fan. So now I can move all my pairs across, and I need a support pin on the other side. Now, if you're wondering why I'm not working this pin, then coming down and working this pin, and I find it's a lot easier to start your fan and finish your fan in one go. So therefore I want all of these ground stitch pins worked so that the pairs are then ready to just come straight in. It's so much easier to do I find it's so much easier to do your lace in blocks. So I see this area of ground as one block, so I will do that. Then I will do my fan, which I see as another block, then this fan, and then I've got all the pairs then ready to go in here. It's less confusing, and you'll see why when we get onto the fans. So now I want to start adding pairs on the other side, and I'm going to mix and match my colours. So let me just keep an eye on what we've got. So there's my new pair, cross stitch, twist, and pin up, leaning slightly back, close with a cross stitch and twist, and then just guide your thread down. There we go. I would suggest using berry pins to do your support pins, because they have blobs on the top, so you can then see the pin and know that it's not a regular pin. But I put it somewhere on my paste pillow and I can't find it. So right, so new pair, cross stitch and twist. I'm hoping you can see this blue on the blue plastic. Pin up and close with a cross stitch and twist. So there we go. Next pair, so I'm going to have purple pair. So cross stitch and twist, pin up, close with a cross stitch and twist. And we're at that point here where I want to add my other worker. So here's my other worker. I've kept them the same colours. And then cross stitch and twist both pairs. Pin up, close with a cross stitch and twist. And then take out your support pin and pull it down. So that is all our pairs added for our ground stitch. So now on the previous exercise we were just working in rows, but this pattern has started with a point, but we're still working from our highest point down. So you can see here, this is my highest point. So if I lift up this pair, and remember your threads go in diagonal lines, and then lift up this pair, you can see that I like to think of it as X marks a spot. So I know these two are right. If I thought it might have been the yellow, you just lift it up, and can you see it doesn't look right? It's the yellow's down here because all the threads run in diagonal lines. So that's one way, if you're unsure of which pairs to use, that's one way to work it out. Actually lift your bobbins up and move them around. They're not they're movable, so feel free to sort of just go, is that right? Oh yes, it is. So now we're on to our ground stitch, and as you learned on the previous exercise, you can do ground stitch in either a half stitch or a cross stitch and twist. So I'm going to do half stitch, just purely because I find it a little bit easier and quicker, because you're only doing half of the cross stitch and twist. So I'm going to do half stitch. I also like the way the threads move, and when you've got lots of different colours, you get quite a good pattern going. So I've pinned up, again angling my pin just slightly back to the back, and then close with a half stitch, and my pairs are back together again. This is why I do it when I'm starting a beginner, all in different colours. You can actually see what's actually happening with your thread. So then I'm going to go this direction, because that is the direction that I feel the most comfortable with. So I've done this pin. I'm now going to go down this row here. So I've got my purple, doing a half stitch, pin up, then close with a half stitch. Bring in my yellow, my next pair. Now make sure before you use it, every pair has a twist, right over left. Half stitch, pin up, and I'm still angling my pins out slightly. close with a half stitch and bring in your next pair. Half stitch, pin up, close with a half stitch. I'm just going to lengthen that pair. So there we go. Now I'm right-handed, so all my bobbins have been wound for a right-handed person. But if you've I have done a video on if you're left-handed how to wind your bobbins, because you do need to do the half hitch slightly differently. So that's the end of that row, and I now need to go back to my highest point. So I'm going to gently move those all across, shorten it, lengthen them as I go, and this is my highest point. You can't do this pin until you've done that pin. You can't do that pin until you've done that one and that one. So this one is my highest point. Again, if you're unsure which pairs make it, pick them up and have a move around, and there you go. You can see straight away it's the yellow. So I've got my twist on. You can see here, here's my twist, and my twist on my red, so that's good. So now all I have to do is my half stitch, pin up and close with a half stitch. So I'm just going to lengthen that one. So now like I said, I'm going to go down in the same row down from this point, but you can go if you want to, and I'll show you it does work if you want to, because these two pins here, this one and here, are on the same level. It doesn't matter which one you do first. So some of you will prefer to come in this direction, some will prefer to go in this direction, and either is doable, either is correct. You don't have to do one before the other because they're on a straight line across. So then I'm going to just do this one to show you that you can go in this direction. So if you look in for your cross, there's your cross. I'm going to do my half stitch, pin up, angle in slightly back and close with a half stitch. Then I'm going to bring in my purple and just do a half stitch, pin up and close with a half stitch. So what you can see is I'm bringing all my pairs down ready to come into my fan. I'm not doing any of these pins here which are on my diagonal line, my zigzag line. So then back up to the middle and highest pin again, and you do carry on doing it. So I'm just going to carry on until I have got to this pin here, because I can do all of that row and all of that row, and this is sort of the point where you need to stop because you won't have any pairs here to come and do your fan. And when I reach this point, I will have 2 pairs off of this pin and 1 off of every other one. So I'm just going to go and do that, and I'll be right back.